All right, everybody, here it is. Welcome to this video. That's right, this video. Welcome, one and all. In fact, let's do a round of applause. Everybody that found this video. Not that video, not the other video, this video. You made it here. You made it to the end of YouTube. That's right, all of the videos on YouTube, this one was chosen to be the end of YouTube. Congratulations, you made it to the very end. You got to turn back. There's nothing beyond this point, but give yourself a pat on the back for finding it. It'd be like, I finally found it, the end of YouTube, it was right here, the outer perimeter. It's like, yes. Right, okay, anyway, it's a guy talking about One Piece on the internet. Who would have thunk it? Okay, so today's video, I'm really excited for this one, guys. This is the video where we talk about how to beat Saturn. More specifically, this is the video where I show you the flowchart on how to beat Saturn. Yeah, look at the flowchart. I made a flowchart. Okay, so last chapter, right? You know, you had Kuma there with his epic fatherly fist of protection for Bonnie, right? And he hockeys that fist up, and he just, you know, filled with just hatred and disdain and all the strife, all the compressed sadness of Kuma's backstory was in that fist. And he goes and he punches Saturn square in the face. It goes concave. He sends him flying. In fact, he doesn't send him flying. I shouldn't say that. He didn't send him flying. He sent him, like, skidding across the pavement into, like, 3 buildings that then got knocked down on top of him, all right? You guys ever watched Hellsing or Hellsing Ultimate? You know, the first anime was pretty good, but Hellsing Ultimate was, like, adapted from the manga, okay? The way that Ceres kills Zorin reminded me of that last chapter of One Piece, where Kuma punches Saturn so damn hard, he just hits the ground and just, you know, just slides across the pavement, just getting his face ripped off, and then slams into a bunch of buildings that were pretty tall, and then just demolished on top of him, all right? Now, that was a really epic scene. We all agree that was an epic scene. I'm glad that Kuma's punch connected. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to really do a lot of damage to Saturn. Now, the only explanation we got for Saturn's, like, endurance up until now was when Bonnie, in her rage mode, took out a katana and went over and, like, stabbed Saturn. And Saturn, all he did was just, like, knock her away, pull out the katana, because he's, like, a big spider guy, so the katana's more of, like, a toothpick to him, but whatever. He pulls out the katana, and not only does the wound close, but the blood. So he does bleed. We've seen this with Saturn, okay? If you punch him hard enough, if you shoot him, if you stab him, the blade or the bullets will go into his body. It's not like they just, like, you know, like, deflect off of his flesh or something like that. They'll go in, and they'll even draw blood. But when Saturn pulls out the bullet or the blade or whatever, not only does the wound close, but any blood that's splattered on the surrounding area or on his clothing or whatever just vanishes instantly, okay? So that was what happened when he just got stabbed. So it's like, all right, let's stress test this a bit. Let's dial it up a couple of notches here. What happens when he gets a hockey punch in the face by one of the physically strongest characters in the story? Because Kuma is jacked, all right? So he punches Saturn, flies into the buildings. We don't know how long it took for Saturn to get back up. You know, it could have been 5 minutes. It could have been less than that. We don't know. But after a couple of minutes, let's say at least, Saturn just gets back up. The buildings just boosh, and then he walks out of the rubble. One of his big spider legs were destroyed. One of his arms were destroyed. His horn was knocked off. But he began to regenerate. And his regeneration is very, very important. The way that he regenerated, okay? It was not a regeneration where it came out of his body. It seemed like there was some kind of fog or mist around him, and his arm was, like, patched back together using that mist. Like, if you look at the panel where his arm is regenerating, it's regenerating at different points all at once. It's not like starting from his, what is this, your shoulder or your elbow? This is your shoulder, right? Yeah, okay. It's like, yeah, I was like, wait a minute, body parts. So his shoulder, elbow, wrist. Yeah, I get those confused sometimes. So yeah, it didn't start from his shoulder to his elbow, to his wrist, to his hand, to his fingers. It was like fingers, arm, shoulder, they were all regenerating at the same time, like they were being created out of a miasma that was around him or something like that. Same deal with his leg, same deal with his horn, okay? So let's put that on the side for right now. We're going to get back to that, okay? But if it bleeds, if he can bleed, he could certainly die. And it's one of those things where we know as a fan base reading One Piece that, yeah, eventually the Gorosei are going to die because, like, you know, that's the end of the story. Like, at the end of the story, we can assume that Dragon's Revolution will succeed, the world government will be reformed, the Tenryubito system will be abolished, Luffy will be king of the pirates, Zoro will be the strongest swordsman in the world. Like, we can assume these things are going to happen by the end of the manga, right? So that means he's got to die at some point, right? So we have a little bit of meta knowledge, we have a little bit of fourth wall breaking powers that we can utilize, unless Oda throws us all for a loop and it turns out all of One Piece was just a prologue. It's just like, no, this was the story of Straw Hat Luffy attempting to become king of the pirates, but he failed and he died, and all the Straw Hats died, and all the worst generation died, and the Gorosei ruled supreme for another 800 years. This is actually, we are reading the story of the second Void Century, and then in the next manga is when the person that will actually overthrow the world government will happen, right? But no, we understand the Gorosei are eventually going to die, which means they have to have a weakness somewhere, and I love this type of stuff. I love it whenever a mangaka or an author in any work of fiction is like trying to introduce like this immortal being, and it's like, oh, immortal, indestructible, they can heal from any damage. How could you possibly win? It's like, all right, well, it's time to science the shit out of it. That's what you do. I wish I was Senku. I wish I was Senku from Dr. Stone. He would have probably already figured out a way to take down Saturn. There's got to be something that's going to work, okay? Whether it be a fancy sword, or a kanabo, or a brick, or a gun, or a spear maybe, or perhaps maybe a lightsaber. I don't know. Maybe a lightsaber could do it. Maybe a chainsaw. I'm still waiting on that C Prism chainsaw. Can we get a C Prism chainsaw? Tell you what, Usopp busts out a C Prism chainsaw on Saturn. Let's see him regenerate from that shit, and then if he does, then we'll have to go into some other ideas. We're going to start thinking outside the box a little bit. But C Prism chainsaw for the win, right? Okay. So let's address this flowchart here. Now, I understand when it comes to like characters like Luffy, Luffy's not going to be thinking about all these different ways to fight Saturn. Luffy's going to be like, I'm going to punch him really hard, and then Saturn's probably going to get right back up, and like, that didn't do anything. Like, all right, I'm going to try to punch you even harder. You know, that's going to be Luffy, okay? But there are some things you could try here, okay? So some of them I brought up in the review. It's like, all right, so let's do some stuff. Let's assume that after that big punch that Kuma landed on Saturn, he got knocked into the buildings, he came out of that, he regenerated. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that took 5 minutes. It could be less, it could be more, but the amount of time really doesn't matter. What matters is he using his own energy, his own stamina, like a lot of Devil Fruit users have, in order to regenerate? Because that is a huge factor. Like with Law, whenever Law uses his room, he can make a bigger room. He can make a room the size of a mountain if he wanted to. We saw that at Dressrosa, but he mentions it's going to diminish his life force, it's going to drain his stamina a lot quicker when he does stuff like that, like those big, giant, like, maneuvers. Same thing with the Awakenings, right? They even mention that in Wano. Like, if they go into their Awakenings and use their power, it drains a lot more stamina when they do that, okay? Now, in the case with Saturn, obviously he's a Gorosei, he's like one of the strongest characters in the story, so his stamina might just be gargantuan, but not infinite, all right? That's a really big difference to have. Like, he could have a health bar that has 10,000 HP, that's not the same thing as infinite HP, all right? It's still a finite number that you can chisel it down if you just punch him enough times, all right? So one thing you could do to check this is, you know, he took massive damage from Kuma, and it took him 5 minutes to regenerate. Well, do the same thing again. Now, I know Kuma can't, like, punch him again. He seems to be kind of worn out and kind of locked up into position right now. But let's say he did take another punch from the face exactly the same way. Would it still take him 5 minutes to regenerate, or would it take more time? If it takes 6 minutes this time, that means that, you know, it's taking more stamina, more energy got depleted, and it's going to take more energy and effort to regenerate. Same deal. Keep hammering him over and over and over and over and over again. You know, Sanji used Ifrit Jambe. Frankie used the Radical Beam, you know? So we got to see some damage incurred on him last time. Sanji just kind of knocked away the spider leg from hitting Bonnie, but Frankie used the Radical Beam that actually did pierce him, and we see the wound healing up, all right? So you just keep hammering him over and over again, and if I would say after, like, a good number of attacks have went through, if he's healing every single one of these attacks like nothing, you know, then it might be possible that the energy that's healing him is not actually coming from him. All right, it might be coming from another source. So that's like the first flow chart split here, okay? Also, try different types of damage. That's really important to try. Now, Kuma obviously used Haki, armament Haki, the vulcanization, when he punched Saturn. All right, and he healed seemingly like not a big deal. So Haki might not play a difference here, but try different stuff. I mean, Frankie did the laser, Sanji has Ifrit Jambe. Try electrical abilities, like Nami, try electrocuting him. Even if you don't think it would work, information is information, all right? It's just like, hey, what do you know? Maybe he had a weakness to lightning damage the whole time, and nobody knew about it. And so Nami hits him with it, and it takes him slightly longer to heal from that. That's valuable information. You can try, all right? Try, you know, more harder, more intense types of Haki. Like Luffy can try the Ryuo techniques that he learned in Wano. You know, he could try the other kinds of techniques to, like, force the destruction Haki inside of Saturn to destroy him from the inside out. Maybe that would work better, okay? Maybe certain types of damage, it takes longer for him to heal from other types of damage, all right? So just try that out, okay? But if he keeps healing at the same rate and it's not a big deal, like, let's say Kuma punched him in the face the exact same way 20 times in a row. Every single time, just boom, you know, gets right back up and heals. Boom, gets right back up and heals. And this just keeps going and going and going. You know, I make a lot of Venture Brothers jokes on this channel, and there was a person that commented on that a while ago, and I just thought of, like, Venture Brothers, and then I thought of Killinger from that show. And then I just imagined Saturn as Killinger. So I might just speak as Saturn with Killinger's voice from the Venture Brothers here, where it's just like Kuma knocks him down like 10 times, and Saturn just gets back up, and he's like, your powers are useless on me, you silly Billy. You know, it's like, Kuma, you fool. Your pacifista powers are useless on me, you silly Billy. You know, it might be something like that. But the point is, like, 20 punches in the face, he gets right back up. He doesn't see, I mean, he might be more annoyed, but he's not like, I can do this all day. And it's like, all right, well, if he can do this all day with minimal effort and he doesn't look like he's afraid of dying, he might just get pissed off from getting punched in the face 20 times, tends to have that effect on most people. That means the power is probably not coming from him, all right? Now, if it's not coming from Saturn himself, where is it coming from? Well, there's some other options over here. By the way, this other one, if he does heal slower, that means he is using up his stamina, so just keep hitting him. In this regard, I think the Straw Hats have this strategy on lockdown, right? If somebody just yells, if Vegapunk figures it out, and he's like, hey, Straw Hat, if you keep hitting him, he'll eventually die. And Luffy's like, I'm already on it. That was already my strategy from day one. You know, gear 5th, gear 4th, let's go. You know, Zoro finds out, he starts hacking him apart. Sanji starts kicking him. Now, I feel like it's not going to quite be that simple, but, you know, the Straw Hats are really strong, and the Gorosei don't leave Marie-Joie very often, so maybe they never actually had the opportunity to incur that much damage upon them. Or maybe the reason Saturn did leave Marie-Joie and he doesn't really worry about his own life being taken is because he knows that I'm indestructible. I'm immortal. I could come back as many times as, you know, even if you know, Saturn did get punched in the face by Kuma. You think his face would have just exploded from the damage. Even if it did, like, so, like, try decapitation too. I mean, might as well throw it in there. I feel like, I have a feeling if you did try to decapitate him or just destroy his head, I feel like the head would just reform, okay? Out of that, like, mist around him. Now, whether that be because of a devil fruit ability or there's something else going on here, whatever, but yeah, try destroying his head. That's probably also a good place to start. Try going for his head, try going for his vital organs, you know, all of them. Yes, all of his vital organs. Maybe one of them will hit, you know, who knows, but I highly doubt. With the way he regenerated his arm, I just feel like that's not going to work, right? So where's the power coming from? Immediately I'm thinking Eam. Eam could have been the one that's like, I have the ultimate power of immortality and I will gift it to my most loyal followers, the Gorosei, because Eam needed some people to, like, run the actual day-to-day operations of the world government and stuff. I don't think Eam is going to be troubled to do that. So when it comes to dealing with the lower realm and all of the different kings and queens and the geopolitics and the economics and everything in the One Piece world, like Im needs somebody to do all that for him, okay? And so those were the Gorosei, right? Now, the Gorosei can also fight in their own right, as we found out, but that's their main job, all right? So if the power is connected to Im, seems to be a very simple solution to this problem, you just gotta kill Im. LOL. That's going to be the most problematic one. If that is what it all ties back to, if it comes back to all the Gorosei get their power from Im directly, and the only way to finish off the Gorosei is to kill Im, then there's going to be a problem because, number one, Im never leaves Marijois. He's always in the castle. He also has a giant laser cannon that he apparently commandeers that he can control at any given moment, although it does take time to, like, recharge and stuff, so I guess he's not free to control that, but still problematic. And we don't exactly know what Im even is, if Im is like a ghost or something, you know what I mean? Im might be impossible to even hit. We know that Im can absorb the fire of the Mera pretty easily. We know Im can deal damage to Sabo, who is a Logia, and the damage, it seemed like when got attacked by Im's tail, Sabo felt like, oh god, that was a lot of pain from that, all right? So Im could be like the manifestation of the power of the ocean or something, I'm not really sure. But that's going to be the biggest problem, if the only way to get rid of the Gorosei is to get rid of Im. Another option on the table, though, is their powers are not technically connected to Im, but they might have been given by Im. But what if they're all connected to each other? Okay, what if it's like the only way, like Saturn is there right now getting damage, and he's healing with power that's owned collectively by the remaining 4 Gorosei. So, like, 4 of them stay at Marijois where it's safe, where they're not taking any damage, and then, like, you know, they're all sitting there right now, like, you know, Top Man and Jupiter and Venus Juro, like, they're all hanging out, and who was the other person? Oh, Marcus Mars. They're all hanging out, and they're like, Saturn just got punched in the face by Kuma. He got a lot of damage. Very well, let's give him some energy so he can keep moving, right? It might be something like that, like a collective bank or collective pool of power that all the Gorosei have, okay? So in that scenario, you basically have to damage all of them at the same time, which could very well happen. We get to a point where all the Gorosei are in a room together and they're all fighting against the revolutionaries or eventually, I don't know, the other, like, strong characters in the story, like the Supernovas or even the Straw Hats. Like, see, they always stay at Marijois, and the Straw Hats are very far from Marijois, and I don't think they're going to be heading there, really. They seem to be keep moving forward to Elbaf, and they got to reach Laugh-Tail, so I don't think the Straw Hats are going to double back to Marijois at any point. So basically, if that's the situation, then the Gorosei are going to have to just leave Marijois at some point, or allow Dragon's Revolution to deal with it, right? Like, it would be interesting if Dragon's Revolution bursts in and they start fighting against all of the Gorosei. You know, would the power to regenerate go down because they're all taking damage at the same time? That could be something there. There also could be, I just wrote other because, like, there might just be something else. It's not related to Im, although I find that highly unlikely. I feel like if Im is either not the wellspring for their powers, he's the one, or they are the one that gave the Gorosei the powers, right? Okay. You know, if not that, maybe something else is going on here where we are literally dealing with the gods of One Piece, which, even if we are in that regard, like, if Luffy has to punch out a god, he's done it before, he'll do it again. You know what I mean? Like, even if we say that, like, Saturn gets out of the rubble, you know, Sanji and Frankie are launching attacks against him, and Saturn is just like, you fools. I am the power of the eldritch being of Saturnus. I am immortal. I am a god. You silly billies. And then Luffy shows up and like, well, I've already fought and beat one of those before. You're not going to be any different. You know, and it could be like, and if we are really going that direction with it, like if Saturn is like, I am a god, Luffy is kind of one too because he has the power of the sun god. So it could literally be down to that. Like, the only way that Saturn or the other Gorosei can be defeated if they have god mythical zones are defeated by other people that have god mythical zones. So in that regard, Luffy and possibly Blackbeard, you know, or maybe some other god zones we haven't met yet, we haven't seen yet. They might be out there somewhere, right? Maybe Dragon has a mythical zone that's a really powerful ability that controls the weather, so maybe he's a contender with this. Something along those lines, okay? Now, if all else fails, and it's like somehow something comes up where you do need to kill Im, and Im is not here right now, so there's just no way to kill Saturn. It's just impossible as long as Im is still alive. So in that case, you just got to move to restraint. I mean, like, that's the basic idea whenever you're dealing with some immortal being from any kind of work of fiction. It's like, all right, you're immortal. You can't die. Great. Can you be restrained? Can we take some sea prism chains and just wrap you in giant layers of sea prism? That even worked on Big Mom. Big Mom, when wrapped with enough sea prism at the Udon prison, wasn't able to really move all that much. She had to request for Kaido's men to take the chains off of her, and Kaido had to say sure. So there are ways to restrain even the strongest characters in One Piece. And like I said, Saturn's physical body, I mean, I'm sure he's physically strong, but like, you know, Big Mom was able, if you try to shoot Big Mom or try to hit her with a Kanabo, it's just gonna bounce right off. Sorry, Barry, I knocked off your hat. But like, if you try to hit Saturn, it is going to hurt him. So in that regard, you have to wonder, like, yeah, if you restrained him with Sea Prism Stone or like a net or something, just throw a net over Saturn. Would that work? Would that be like, you fools, you have restrained me, let me out at once? Now, he does have a lot of weird magic powers, like lightning and shit, so a net probably wouldn't work. You know, he'd probably just burn right through the net or just rip it or something, right? But the Sea Prism chains, you know, like the same kind of chains they used on Big Mom at Wano, like, would that work? Now, that's another question. Because if Sea Prism and throwing him in the ocean and Haki don't seem to have any real effect on him, that might indicate his power isn't a devil fruit. And I know a lot of people are against that idea because he clearly has the ribbon, the steam ribbon around him that is indicative of mythical zones. You know, we saw that with Luffy. We even saw that with Lucci to a degree, and Kaku when they went into their awakened forms, right? So he seems to be very clearly a mythical devil fruit user. Okay, well, I'm just saying, we got to test that, all right? Throw some Sea Prism on him. If you chain him up with Sea Prism and Saturn is just like, you fools, nothing can restrain me, then it's like, all right, this might be something beyond devil fruit powers. If he's immune to the natural weaknesses of devil fruit powers, that means he either has, like, Im gave him the powers to be immune to the weaknesses, or he's something else altogether, you know? And it ties back to the whole thing of, like, all right, if Kaido has a dragon mythical zone, then do actual real legit dragons exist? Because kind of, like in One Piece, we just saw the special with Ryuma with the dragon, right? That was supposed to be canon, right? Luffy can turn into the sun god Nika. Does the sun god actually exist? So that means there's an original sun god and then the fruit of the sun god's power. If Saturn is this Ushioni, like yokai, then there might be an actual Ushioni. So just remove the whole devil fruit thing from the equation, and it might be like, no, Saturn is just a legit yokai. He is a legit devil from the underworld that exists in One Piece, and he doesn't have the power of a devil fruit. And the reason he has that ribbon and stuff is because, well, it's sort of like the devil fruit power copies the power of this being, so it would look similar. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the original has the ribbon. It's not that all mythical zones have the ribbon. It's the original mythical creature had that, and it just carries over to the devil fruit in some way. Am I making any sense? I don't know. I hope I am. But, yeah, so if devil fruit, if he's not a devil fruit user, if that doesn't work, if he can just, like, throw him in the ocean and he just, you know, scuttles out of the ocean like a crab, just, it did not work. If he just breaks Sea Prism restraints, if Haki doesn't really have any negative effect on him, then maybe he's not a devil fruit user. He's immune to their weaknesses, and in which case, I don't know, maybe a laser beam would work, like a big laser beam, though, not like just the radical beam, like the mother frame or mother flame, or, you know, some other, like Vegapunk has toys. Vegapunk has stuff on the island that maybe he can utilize, but at that point, I'm starting to run out of ideas here, okay? I'm thinking the most likely, because Saturn really doesn't seem concerned that he's gonna die, right? Like, there's no worry on Saturn's face, like, if I'm not careful, they might discover my weakness. He does have a weakness. Like, they definitely have a weakness. They're not just going to be immortal, indestructible, and that's the way that the series is going to end, is this Gorosei killing everybody, right? There's definitely a weakness, but Saturn might know that the weakness is not exploitable right now at the moment. It's like the weakness is Im, or the weakness are the other Gorosei that are safe at Marijois. And even if you just obliterated Saturn, like, that would be like the giant laser beam. Like, that would be cool. Like, if Vegapunk pulled out some, like, disintegration ray, it's like, Quasar! You know, like, fire the disintegration ray at Saturn, and then he just gets atomized right there. I'm like, we did it, everybody! And then it just, like, forms back, and it's just like, oh, we didn't do it. Just like, yeah, if that's what happens, if that happened, it's like, okay, there's something else going on here. Like, Eam is the bearer of the power. You need to kill him, right? And that's easier said than done, right? But anyway, that was my flow chart. That was the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below on the ways that you would test this on how to destroy Saturn, right? In either case, I think a tactical retreat from the Straw Hats is what they should focus on right now. Maybe get some hits out on Saturn on the way out, but I think they need to get out of there to reassess the situation, because it's not just Saturn, it's also all the Vice Admirals and Kizaru, a lot of other players moving on, and now a Buster Call. Third one that Robin has been through. So I think a retreat for now is good, and then maybe when you get to Elbaf, you could be like, all right, how do we kill these guys? You know, how does this work? Right? Maybe Vegapunk could come up with some ideas. If anybody could, it would be Vegapunk, right? Vegapunk might lay down some information about, like, listen, this is the way Devil Fruits actually operate. If Saturn really is the mythical zone, then maybe his powers come from blah, 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 and then, you know, we could figure out something there. But that's that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video, everybody. Welcome to the very end of the perimeter of YouTube. This is Teching signing out. Later, everyone. Bye.